Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sidelined, the podcast to get your fix while sports are in limbo. Here are your hosts, Abby Labar, Carlin Baith, and yours truly, John Root.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us for episode 2 of Sidelined. I am John Root. Hopefully you enjoyed episode 1 from us 3, but we are bringing in a guest finally for episode 2. Abby Labar, who do we got today?
All right, episode 2 of Sidelined, and we officially have our very first guest. We knew that you guys were tired of listening to us for one episode, so that's all you need of just us 3. So we have Mr. Nick Gismondi on here, a.k.a. Gizmo. For those of you in the hockey world, you know him pretty well. Chicago Blackhawks. Nick, I'll let you just go ahead, tell us about yourself, what you're doing now with the Blackhawks, where you've been recently, all that good stuff. Let us know.
I didn't realize I was the first guest. This is like monumental.
No pressure.
There's a little extra pressure now.
Surprise.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. Obviously, the amount of respect I have for the three of you goes through the roof, and getting to work with you and in your buildings and alongside you, it's been fun. But no, Chicago this year has been unbelievable. I mean, it's funny to think after doing this as long as I have to now get to be in the Chicago market and to get to work with the Blackhawks, an original 6, a storied franchise, to be on that broadcast as their rinkside reporter, and to get to work with the Pat Foley's of the world, who's a Hockey Hall of Famer, and Eddie Olczyk, who's a good friend and just an amazing person in general, and an incredible broadcaster and talent. It's been pretty amazing. I'm having a great time, and I think back on all the years I've been doing this, and you think about the career, and this is dream come true stuff for me. I get to do, as the rinkside reporter, we get to do those bench interviews before the game, and you're standing out there, and the lights are still off in the arena, and you're on the bench, and there's that buzz that's going around, and my good friend, he's one of the communications guys, John Steinmiller, and he stands there with me on the bench as we wait for the players to skate up. And I had the biggest grin on my face every time. And he pointed it out I guess it was a couple months ago now. He goes, "You're always smiling when you're out here." I go, "If I am ever standing on this bench at the United Center waiting to talk to an NHL player exclusively and I'm not smiling," I go, "it's probably time for me to find a new job." So.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. And so you have been in this business for a while. You said 25 years, but you look great. Let me just say, you don't age at all.
What's your secret on your skincare?
Yeah. You know what? It's I take a page out of Rob Lowe's book. So it's you do the exfoliating scrub at night, and you do the moisturizer in the morning, and the face wash, and you do the guy stuff. It's funny. Like I'm trying to hang in there. I just had a birthday a couple of days ago, so I'm starting to get up there. The hair's getting gray though. The gray's starting to come in. But,
oh my gosh!
Trying to keep it tight here.
But it's a little touch of gray. It looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your hockey background stems, way far back, and we'll jump into that later. But as far as your industry background, for those listening, aspiring reporters, over the last 25 years, just kind of tell us, how you ended up with the Blackhawks now, and maybe one or two things that you've learned along the way. We know you're with the Vegas Golden Knights last season, and you also did some tennis on CBS Sports.
Yeah. Wow. So it started as a hockey player. And it's kind of a long story. I'll try to make it real nice and short for you though. But yeah, so I started as a hockey player. I grew up in Detroit. So everybody in Michigan was, obviously a Red Wings fan. You're trying to play the game of hockey, and there's, lucky to be in a city that had a ton of AAA, a ton of options. I mean, at every single level of the game of hockey. So I played it until basically I was 15 years old, and then I got hurt really badly in my major year, which unfortunately is a super pivotal year if you're a hockey player trying to make it to the next level. So right around 15, 16 is when you're looking at playing in juniors, and then potentially going to play college, and then or major juniors, or whatever your path is going to be to get to the NHL. So I got hurt, and I got hurt at the end of the season. And unfortunately for me, it was a full stop. You miss that window. And that's the tricky thing about any sport really, but especially in hockey, there's that limited window in those few months between seasons where you have to make that jump to the next level. And I got hurt right at the end of our year, and I wasn't able to continue on. And so for me, I was pretty practical even at that age. So I said, well, if I'm not going to make it to the NHL and I'm not going to go play college hockey, this is a waste of time and resources and energy. So I was in love with the game. I've been in love with the game since I can remember. So for me, it was, how do I find a way to still be a part of the sport of hockey? And my high school radio station and the guys on my team dared me to try out. So I tried out for the high school radio station, 88.1 FM in Plymouth, Michigan, and I made it. And as soon as I got in, I talked them into letting me broadcast the North American Hockey League junior team, the Computer Ambassadors, in our city's games. So I did play-by-play on radio for the North American Hockey League for 2 years. And then there's an OHL team in our city as well. And I basically did a good job with the North American League and then jumped on up and did games in the OHL on Fox Sports Radio. And then I was still in high school. So I graduated high school and I got graduated to Fox Sports Detroit. And I just sort of kind of climbed my way up. But the funny thing for me is that it wasn't the path to get to hockey wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. You know, I made that jump from the NA to the OHL. And then I thought, okay, well, great. Like I'll get an AHL job or something, but it's hard. Like you think about it, you take the NHL, for example, there's only 31 of those positions available. There's 31 play-by-play guys. There's 31 color guys. There's 31 rinkside reporters. So I got derailed a little bit. I ended up moving to Los Angeles, and I lived in LA moved to Los Angeles in 2005, late 2005. And I started working on an Olympic sports network. It was World Championship Sports Network at the time, and that ended up becoming Universal Sports, which became a faction of NBC Sports Network. And I ended up doing Olympic sports, and I did that till 2017 when the Knights came into the league. And when I got into the league, when the Knights came in, I was offered the opportunity to do the studio hosting, and obviously I jumped at it. And you know, I had an incredible time there for 2 seasons. And this past summer, they decided to go in a different direction. And, you know, that's typical in sports. I think it caught myself and my partners, Ali Lozoff and Brad May, a little off guard. But obviously it was a change up for us. I was in love with that community. I was in love with that fan base. And I had some good friends on the team, too, that I had known from growing up and playing and then coaching. A couple guys on that team that I had actually coached before, Brandon Peary, and you know, so it was a tough one there. And you know, I think it happened so late in the summer that there was a moment of like, well, okay, like what is going to happen? How am I going to continue to do this? Because it's like you had just broken into the NHL. I had spent 22 years trying to get a job in the NHL, and then you get there and then all of a sudden things change on you. But I got a phone call from Eddie Olczyk, actually, it was like the day after I had found out that I wasn't going to be returning to Vegas. And Eddie Olczyk called and asked what happened, and he and I had a conversation, and he goes, let me make some phone calls and we'll figure something out. And so I hung the phone up with Eddie, and literally 24 hours after that, I was on the phone with the Blackhawks, and I was talking to Adam Rogowin and John Steinmiller, who are their heads and directors and VPs of communication. And a couple of days later, I got a phone call back from them, and they asked if I wanted to be a Chicago Blackhawk. And I was on a plane, I think, a couple of days later, and in Chicago. And I remember pulling up to the United Center, and Will Chuckerman, one of the other communications guys, he comes out, and big hug. Handed me some Blackhawks stuff, and I walked in and I got to meet everybody, and it's been unbelievable. Like, that organization is, I don't even know, it's white glove. It's first class across the board, and it starts with Rocky, the owner, and it goes right down to everybody involved. You know, John McDonough and Jay Blunk and Pete Hassan, and then all the communications guys. So for me, it actually worked out for the better. I couldn't be happier in Chicago. And I think that's the lesson for anybody that's aspiring to do this job. You have to pay your dues. You have to be patient, even when you don't want to be patient. And you're going to hear no a lot, and that's okay. But it's taking the no and turning it into a maybe, and then taking that maybe and still hammering on it and turning it into a yes. And, I think the other thing to keep in mind that I would tell anybody in this business is you got to be a good person. You have to be kind. You have to treat everybody with the exact same amount of respect, whether it's the security guard or whether it's the person setting up your pregame meals in the media room, whether it's the equipment guys. I mean, everybody probably works a lot harder than I do, and has a lot harder of a job. And you got to take care of all those people. And I think, especially in the hockey world, I think if you're a good person and you take care of the game will end up taking care of you.
And Nick, I love that you said it's a grind, and for it is, but for you especially, and I think a lot of young reporters, and we've gone through this before. I know I have, and me and John have had these conversations, but you played the sport. And I think a lot of people get down on themselves when they see these other reporters that are moving up. And a lot of times they're like, well, they played the sport. It's different. You played hockey. You were good at hockey, and you still had to go through the grind. It took you 22 years to get to the NHL level. And so I think that's huge coming from somebody like you, for those listening that may get discouraged because they might not necessarily have played the sport. Like, that's not what it's all about. You got to work hard and push. So that's awesome.
And there are a ton, you don't have to play the sport to
For
be.
sure.
I did tennis last summer. I'm doing this again this summer for CBS. And I'm not a tennis player, but it's about committing yourself to whatever it is that you're doing. If you want to be a hockey play-by-play guy or analyst or rinkside reporter or insider, you can do it. But you can't just show up. It's not talent alone. You have to be willing to put the work in. You have to be willing to understand the nuances of the game. And that comes from watching it. It comes from talking to people about it. It comes from really trying to understand what's going on. And I think if you're able to do that, then you can be successful in whatever you do. It's just about applying yourself to it and really wanting it. And I think for me, the hard part about getting into hockey was there's a lot of talented people in our league. I mean, look at the group that we have just assembled right here, doing what each of us does in this business in the NHL. It's hard. It's hard. And you have to be willing to really dig into it. Like, people ask me all the time, like, oh, it must be so much fun. You just show up. It's like, no, man, like, a game day is, I spend 8 hours doing homework on a game day, and I'm watching the previous team play, and I'm, you're doing interviews, and you're understanding things, and you're at every single practice, and you're understanding what they're doing, and you're understanding the systems, and you're picking up on the things that are nonverbal. And so for me, it's all about the work, but anybody can do it. It's just a matter of how badly do you want it. And I think a lot gets separated in the discouragement. Some people get discouraged, and I've been there. I mean, like I said, Abs, this summer, I was pretty much sure I wasn't going to be working in the league this year. And before we started, we were talking, I told John, I said, this knocked me down to my knees. It's the first time in a long time that I actually kind of was on both knees and was like, all right, okay. But you take a 10-minute pity party, and then you say, all right, well, let's figure it out. Let's work the problem.
How much do you enjoy adapting to these different roles? Because you came from something so different in pre and post hosts for Vegas to now doing this rinkside reporting. And, how does the prep change as well there? And how much are you kind of enjoying this new role that you're in with Chicago?
Stevie, that's a great question. You see right there. That's why pro.
I'm trying.
That's a great question. Listen, it was daunting this year. It was a little intimidating for sure. I mean, it's funny because my career has kind of evolved in a weird way. It's like I started as a play-by-play guy. And I've spent most of my career as a play-by-play announcer. And then the studio host was a change of gear for me. Like, even when I was doing the Olympic sports at NBC, I was play-by-play for those sports. So it was like, okay, shift gear, be a studio host in Vegas. And I loved that role. I truthfully loved the hosting role. And Brad May was my partner, and he's still to this day one of my best friends. So that was fun. And then this was another big gear shift, right? I had done sideline reporting throughout my career sporadically, but never fully, if that makes sense. And I think when this opportunity came up, it was another great chance for me to just do something that I had known, but for really the first time in hockey. I had done it a couple of times last year in Vegas for Allie. I'd subbed in for her here and there, but this was the first season that I was fully into it. And for me, the enticing side of it was getting to be a little bit more involved. When you're the studio host or you're the play-by-play guy, you're during the game, you're separated from it a little bit. But for me as the sideline or the rinkside reporter, the joy is in the being able to be in the moment a little bit more. You're talking to players at the intermission. You're talking to them before the game. You're talking to them immediately after the game, good or bad, win or lose. And personally, I think the pressure's a little bit higher for a rinkside reporter. I think it probably has the most pressure of the positions sans the play-by-play. I think that's probably the most pressure because you have to be on for the entire game. But being able to understand what the player is going through at that moment, whether they're winning or losing, especially on an intermission interview or a pre or post-game interview, and being able to ask a logical question that gives the viewer something that they wouldn't otherwise know. So for me, I think that there was pressure there for sure in just trying to make sure that you hit the ball because it is a high pressure situation. You have to ask a question in 7 seconds, essentially.
Yep.
And then you have to be listening and reacting. So the preparation for me was just going in, just making sure I was paying even maybe more attention to the matchups, more attention to what players are going through and how that game is evolving too. Like when I'm watching the game in Chicago, I'm watching the game, and you watch it. You can watch a hockey game a million different ways. You can watch it as a player. You can watch it as a coach. You can watch it as an announcer. You can watch it as a fan. And for me, they're very different ways. They're very, very, very different ways of watching the game of hockey. And the reporter way is a completely different one because I'm watching every drop of the puck. I'm watching all of these different things all at once. So for me, I think it becomes much more analytical. And that was something I had to change and prepare and watch differently.
We all had our different story we talked about in episode 1 about finding out when sports got canceled or put on pause. So can you break down what that day was like, who you heard from? Did you get it on social media, and exactly what that day was like for you? And then it seems like too, you're just such a genuine, positive, good guy as well. And when we view other people around the industry too, we can see a genuineness, whether it's on social media or on a broadcast. And it seems like the relationships you're even able to build with players in that just 20 seconds that you have with them, there's not a lot of ringside reporters that have that. Like I see that with Carlin as well. And there's an openness there. Is that something that came natural to you, or did you learn that from a specific mentor, or how did that come about?
I think it's about just I try to be a good person in general. Like we've all had our things, right? We've all had our bumps in the road, and we've all had our struggles, John. And so for me, it's just be positive, be honest, be genuine, show an interest. I feel like whenever I'm doing a broadcast or whenever I'm doing an interview, I'm trying to have a conversation with the viewer. I'm not trying to talk at them. I'm not trying to bark at them. I'm not trying to be some top of the mountain expert, because that's not how this is. For me, it's a conversation. It's a conversation with the player. It's a conversation with the coach. And I want people at home to feel like they're sitting on a bar stool next to me, whoever I'm talking to, and they're listening in on that conversation. And if that's the feeling that people get, then they're going to give that back to you. And I think one of the coolest things for me this year, it's a funny story because you brought up the relationship with the players. I was the new guy in Chicago. I really didn't know any of those guys too well at all. The only guy that I had known previous was Ryan Carpenter, because he had been in Vegas for 2 years. So
That's my boy.
Carpy.
Yeah, we're good friends. I love that guy.
I love Carpy so much. He's such a good guy. But so I walked into the room. It was the first day, and remember, it's a whirlwind for me. I had basically just found out I wasn't getting renewed in Vegas. I picked up and basically had to get to Chicago. I was like a player being traded. And I walked into the room, and Carpy's sitting there, and he stands up. He goes, "Gismo." And I go, what's up, buddy? He goes, "Did you get traded with me?" Or signed with me? No, long story. Well, I'll tell you later. But I only knew one guy in that room. Where in Vegas, I had relationships with guys that I'd known for 15 years, guys that I had coached. So, for me, that first couple months in Vegas or in Chicago was an understanding that I needed to bond with the community. I needed to show them that I cared and that I wanted to be there. And I needed to bond with the guys, and I needed them to know that I wasn't just some media person. I wasn't just a talking head, that I was there as a hockey guy to and you do that through questions, and you do that through conversations. And it's you, the new kid, in the first day of school. And I think the most fun moment of all that kind of culminated. It was, I don't know, it was 2 months ago. I'd done some stuff with the Cap. So me and 19 had done some events before, and he had kind of seen me. And so I was in the hallway getting ready to do an intermission interview. He had hit a post and he'd scored a goal. We had a really good period. And we try not to hit the big guys too much. Carlin, you take the caps when you can get them, but
spread it out.
Spread it out. You had a big one with Taser, and he comes out. And now, mind you, up until this point, it had been Nick, very professional. He's such a stud. He's got like a gravitational pull around him. Comes out, and we're waiting to get the cue to do the interview. And he goes, I told him what we were going to talk about real quick. We were going to review the goal, and we're going to talk through it and illustrate it, or break it down or whatever. And he goes, hey, is it cool if I call you Gizmo? And I'm like, well, I was like, yeah, like, of course. He goes, like, Gizmo, it's cool if I call you Gizmo on TV and stuff. Like, and I'm like, yes.
Aww.
Did we just become best friends?
So we do the interview, and he goes, we finish the interview, and he goes through his goal, and he goes, all right, he goes, thanks a lot, Gizmo, and he walks away. And Will Chuckerman, one of our communications guys, was standing off, and they escort the player back to the room, and Will just looks at me and he goes, I'm like, all right, I made it. We're good. It's about building the bond.
That's such an unwritten rule with this job that you kind of verbalized perfectly about, there's so much more that people don't see. They see your face on TV, they see you getting to, have the time of your life, having seemingly the best job in the world, but it's so much more than that. And that relationship building that goes into it, it's extensive. And I don't know if you can put this into words, but how is trust built with each of these guys behind the scenes? If you were kind of able to verbalize it to someone who's like, what does he do during a morning skate? Or how does, that trust building moment happen? Is there an example or a time where you're like, okay, I've got this player's trust now? Like maybe they told you something about an injury that you never disclosed on TV, and they like looked at you like, hey man, you didn't talk about my shoulder that I was icing on the plane. Thanks a lot for that. Like, what are some examples of trust building that aspiring reporters need to know about that they wouldn't see?
I think you nailed it on the head within that question. I think it's knowing what's what. Listen, as a journalist, you have to be objective. That is your job. But you also have to look at where you're at and who you're with. You're part of a team. You are part of a team, and I view myself as part of that team. And as a hockey player, for me, that team is your family. And I'm Italian. I'm a very family first guy. Family means everything to me. So I will protect those guys above anything else. And it's a weird thing to do, because when you grow up as a journalist, and I've done where you work for a team, then I've also done where you're on the national side. But at the end of the day, I think it also comes back to just being a good person. Do I need to tell the public that John Smith is injured with a leg injury? What's that going to do? What's that going to do for the viewer? That's not going to do anything for the viewer, because he's not playing like he's got a leg injury. He's out there, he's doing just fine. If I report that, well, then somebody goes and takes a whack at him and he hurts him. And now that's hurting him. That's hurting the team. That's hurting the family. That's hurting his family. There's no reason to do that. So I think, yes, the trust is built in just being a good person in general to those guys, and also just paying attention. Like, a lot of it comes in too. I think a lot of the general trust comes in the questions that you ask, because it shows them that you're paying attention, and it shows them that you actually care. And I'll have, when I was getting to know these guys, you have a lot of conversations about, personal stuff too, just so that they can get to know you. And it shows them that you've taken an interest, that they're not just a hockey player. They're a person, or they're not just a tennis player, or they're not just an athlete. They're a human being doing a job that is super cool. But, taking an interest in them, and, showing that you care. And yeah, they'll start to tell you things, of course. And when you don't run out and make that news and use it as a sensationalism piece, then that's how you build trust. But, for me, I got a little bit lucky too, that, having played the sport helps. They definitely are like, okay, he understands the game of hockey. He put the laces on. He knows what it's like to be out there on the ice and to take a hit and to block a shot and all those little things. And then, I'm lucky to have a bunch of friends that play in the league, and that helps too, because they know that people see that. People see that that you've got relationships with other people in the league, and if those people trust you, then it's sort of like a vouching for across the board. But I think you can build that trust by just being a good person, and being an intelligent question asker, and just showing that you're engaged in it.
I know Abby's gonna have some questions for you about Justin Williams, and
yeah, you're pretty familiar
Yeah.
with two of our guys,
Yeah.
I guess. So for
Jay Kopitar, yeah.
Canes fans and Kings fans that are listening right now, do you have any good stories you want to share on either or both? Because you're really close with both guys.
I'll start with Justin. I've known Justin since we were kids. Justin and I have been friends since we were 15 years old. So Justin played for the Plymouth Whalers in the Ontario Hockey League, and for just a brief moment when he was coming back from injury, for the CompuWare Ambassadors in the North American Hockey League. And those were the teams that I was announcing for. And so we were the same age, and we just clicked. We were good friends then, and we sort of kind of grew up together in a lot of ways. And he's one of the most, I mean, you can't even put into words the kind of person that guy is.
We know.
What he's got off the ice too, and what he's meant to me. I mean, he's always been there. He's always been a friend, no matter what. He's always been a member of the family. He treats my mom and dad like his parents. He treats my little brother with a ton of respect, and it's fun now because he's got 2 little kids, and they're not really that little anymore. His son Jax is going to play in the NHL, and his daughter Jade's probably going to play in the professional women's league too.
He's
so
awesome.
they're the greatest little kids, and I get to, I'm Uncle Nick, which is a ton of fun for me because we sort of grew up together, and now I get to sort of be a part of his growing family. But Justin is one of the most genuine people you'll ever meet in the entire world. He's his character and his compassion and just who he is exactly what you all see in Carolina. He cares. He cares deeply about the guys in the room. He cares deeply about the community and the city, and he cares deeply about that franchise. I mean, that franchise holds a big spot in his heart, obviously going back to 2006. So he's a funny guy, I'll tell you that. He's witty, and you got to be on your toes. He's also super competitive. There's no beating him in golf. He's an unbelievable golfer. He's an incredible card player. I can't really tell any other stories. I don't want to break that trust.
We'll keep it PG. But yeah, I mean, he was special. He was special to the Kings as well. So for Kings fans listening, so
that's the fun tie-in, right? And actually, what a lot of people don't know is that Justin and Kopi are best buddies as well.
Oh, for sure. Oh yeah.
So the 3 of us actually, when we were all in Los Angeles together, it was incredible. So basically the relationship, the tie-in is this. It's kind of fun. So I had known Dustin Brown from the OHL days as well. So Dustin was a superstar for the Guelph Storm, and I was the young up-and-coming broadcaster for the Plymouth Whalers. So I had interacted with Dustin quite a bit. And then a good friend of mine, Corey Elkins, who was in the Kings system for a little while, ended up living with Dustin Brown. And so Dustin and I reconnected, and we became good friends. And it was Thanksgiving. I don't even remember the year. It was forever ago. The Browns had Thanksgiving at their house. I was working, doing the Olympic sports thing for NBC. And Justin was obviously in town, and he had gotten traded there, which was awesome for me because I got my buddy back. And so I went to Thanksgiving dinner with the Browns and the Williamses at the Browns house, and the Kopitars were there. It was Anjay and his now wife, but then girlfriend, Enos. And so we all had the most unbelievable Thanksgiving. We had a bunch of bottles of Jordan. And it was kismet, where it was a long relationship with Justin. I was instantly, by the end of the night, Anjay and I had become best friends as well. And it just from there exploded.
Was the check into the boards that he gave you before or after that Thanksgiving meal?
That was after. That was way after. That was years after. That was a lot of fun. So. And that was a cool moment for me too. So we got to shoot. We were doing a thing leading up to the Olympics in 2014, and I got to go out there and have a little skills competition with Cope. And I hadn't been on skates in forever.
You held your own, though. You looked great.
And he goes up to me, Kopi again, and I can't say enough about Kopi either. He's the most genuine, kind. I mean, him and Justin are cut from the same cloth. It's not a surprise that the 3 of us are as close as we are, because I think there's a lot of similarities across the board. But Kopi too, he's a do anything for you. And those guys, by the way, were the first guys that called me when things didn't go well in Vegas this summer.
That's awesome.
Justin called, Kopi called right away.
Yeah.
And both of them are like, let's figure it out. Like, what do we got to do to help you out? Same as I told the story about Eddie Olczyk. And, Kobe's just that guy, but he's also a lot of fun. So we were out on the ice, and he goes, "You got to let me hit you." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, "You got to let me hit you. You're in full gear." He goes, "Come on, let me just light you up a little bit." I was like, "All right, fine. I'll take it to the outside. I'll run up the boards and go, and then let me have it." And he said, "Good." He got his eyes got all big. He put a little into that too. That wasn't just that wasn't a love tap. Like
he boarded you.
Yeah, he did.
Boarded you. Oh.
But same again. Like his family means the world to me. I was at his wedding. He had a gorgeous wedding in Slovenia at a castle, and it was the most incredible wedding that I think I've ever been at. I mean, it's a party. I mean, the whole day was an awesome lead up of culture and ceremony, and then the wedding was a blast, and the party was awesome. And and again, he's got 2 little kids that call me Uncle Nick, and it's a lot. It means a lot to me. Relationships and family mean more to me than anything. So to be able to have that, and to be able to have friendships like that, I don't care who they are, hockey player or my next door neighbor, if I have those relationships, that's the measure for me. So it's fun. Those 2 guys, they're the best though. God, I love them both.
Well, I got to bring Sharks fans into the fold. I hate bringing up things that might be opening up a wound, but there was a big playoff series last year, and I'm going to try to be professional about this, Nick. It obviously went San Jose's way, but as a professional broadcaster, you're working for a team that whatever team you work for, you're loving. And then when you see things kind of starting to slip away a little bit, and then when you have just a monumental breakdown in a game 7, like obviously it hurts your heart. But for me, I'm thinking I was on the other side of things where I'm like, okay, my heart's beating at a dangerous rate, and I might need to talk to some medical personnel. And on your side of things, it's like, how do I be professional in a broadcast after seeing something like that?
Yeah, great. That's a great question. So obviously I watched it play out. And what you're talking about is the elimination of the Vegas Golden Knights, and the penalty that led to the 5-minute power play and then to the overtime.
He wasn't gonna paint the picture, but
yeah. I'll paint it. I'll fill it in. I'll color with numbers here. Yeah. Listen, I was sitting. Such a hard question, especially right now. I was sitting with Brad May, and we were watching it unfold, and obviously, I was working for the Golden Knights. Objectively, I was shocked at the call, the way it was made. We watched it play out, and I watched the replay, and we watched the slow-mos, and I was like, there's no way that's a 5-minute major. There's no way that's a 5-minute major in this situation in an NHL game in the playoffs like it is. So right away, I was like, oh God. And the power play started, and Brad and I looked at each other, and we both sort of saw the direction that it was going quickly. And we both kind of were like, uh-oh. And when the uh-oh came true, we were like, okay. Now, mind you, we didn't have to go on TV yet to talk about it because we were the post-game show. So they tie it up. And then I'm pretty sure we did a quick hit in between end of regulation and the overtime. And we just said, hey, listen, not a penalty. It is what it is. They managed to tie it up. We talked about hockey gods a little bit, and we tried to keep it down the middle. Like, I've always tried to not ever be a homer. Even if I'm working for a team, I'm all about being honest and being open. So I kept it down the middle, and Brad was able to get a little bit more colorful than he did. And we kept it right down the middle. And then unfortunately, when it didn't work out for the Knights, we basically just sort of looked at each other and we're like, just handle it. Just talk about facts, talk about the professionalism, and just try to do that and not interject too much personal. And so that's what we did. I kept it down the middle. I did say I thought it was an egregious penalty, and that the league is going to take a look at that, and they're going to probably have to change some things. And obviously they did. There's a new rule in place this year as a result of it. But it's always about adversity, and I think it's a good metaphor for anything. It's life, it's sports, it's whatever. Yeah, you just took a 5-minute major. Was it justified? No. Was it fair? No, but that's life. Not everything is going to be justified. Not everything is going to be fair. So what do you do with the situation? You have to work the problem. So for the Knights to give up that many power play goals in that span, that you gotta be able to stop that. You got to be able to stop that bleed. So it was a weird situation, but the tie-in for me, and this is probably a little bitter now too, but the tie-in for me, the silver lining there was that Pete DeBoer and Steve Spott were a couple of my first ever bosses. So they were the head coach and assistant coach of the Plymouth Whalers when I was their announcer. So I knew Pete Steve well. And so, there was a little part of me that wasn't, obviously I was happy for my friends. But that situation was wild. It was probably one of the most wild sports situations that I've ever been a part of, aside from being in Boston reporting on the marathon in 2013.
Yeah.
No hard feelings.
Well, it was just, I think it's probably the craziest thing I'm ever going to see in my entire life working in the industry. But the silver lining of this is now that you work for the Blackhawks, we can officially be friends now. And that warms my heart. It makes me feel good.
Right. There's no rivalry anymore. I mean, we don't have the San Jose Chicago rivalry at all.
The Kings, on the other hand, sorry, there's history.
We're missing those moments, that's for sure, being a part of moments like that. And, obviously sports are in limbo right now. So Nick, hockey being such a huge part of your life, and obviously other sports in general, I don't know if were you planning to do tennis again this year with CBS, or what was kind of your deal there?
Yeah. And, luckily right now, tennis is still not off the table. World Team Tennis isn't going to be – that season doesn't really start up until the middle of July. So as of right now, it's still looking like World Team Tennis is going to hopefully play this summer. Obviously, safety first, athletes and the fans, and it's a moving scale right now, just to make sure that everything is – the way it's supposed to be. Nobody's going to jump the gun and come back early or do something that's going to put the public at health risk or anything like that. But the plan this summer is to do World Team Tennis again. That'll be on CBS Sports Network all summer long, starting July 12th, and then right after that, right back into the hockey season with the Hawks again next year. So I'm trying to bide the time right now, but I'm missing it terribly. I'm watching Friday Night Lights. I never watched Friday Night Lights. I don't know how I missed that series.
I saw your tweet.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
I should have done this whole interview in a Texas accent, because I've watched
wait.
I've watched 30 episodes.
Wait, funny you
Foreshadowing.
say that. Funny you say that.
Hit it, guys.
Should we just go right into it?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay,
go Abby.
So the tweets, your tweets are just like, I picture like, somebody with an amazing inspirational voice, like giving me speeches of your tweets. So for people
I'm the Kyle Chandler of Twitter.
Yes. Yeah. So for people
you want me to read my tweets in a Kyle Chandler voice?
Absolutely.
Did he see your notes? Like, how does he know?
I don't know. I literally
this is crazy.
And I said, hold on to these.
Wait. I'm just guessing. Go ahead.
Dead serious. Dead serious. Yeah. So for people who aren't reading your tweets, we need you to read them to our audience so they can hear, but you have to do it in your best speech, inspiration, voice. Give it to us.
You want me to go Kyle Chandler? We want to go we'll go Friday Night Lights with this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, go full Kyle Chandler. Go for it.
Yes.
Clear eyes, full heart. Do it.
Clear eyes. I'm going to say that at the end and you all know what to say. All right, here we go. Just checking on y'all. I hope you're staying healthy. More importantly, positive. A lot of negative out there, but I promise there's more positive, so you seek it out. You take care of yourselves, your friends, and your family. Be part of the solution, because if you are not, you are part of the problem. I want you to ignore that negative and you seek that positive out. Get yourselves in a good spot. Let's go. Clear eyes, full hearts.
Can't lose.
Yes!
Let's go.
Folks. Make some memories.
That was awesome.
Oh, I'm ready to hit the football field. Let's go.
That was a good
another
accent.
one. You want one?
Do the second.
I
Do
got
one more.
for
I
you
need
here.
One
we
more.
need one more for good measure.
I was gonna
Yep.
tweet. I was gonna tweet today. We are not. I'm sorry. Let me start that again.
Hold on, we're losing you.
We
Start
are
it
all
again.
in the same boat. All right, here you go. We are all in the same boat. We are not all in the same storm. For some people, it's sprinkling. This is a break. It's a breather. It's rest. It's a pause, a time to reconnect with their families. Honestly, it's kind of peaceful. For some, though, it's a storm. It's a bit scary. It's disruptive. It's enough to make you stay up and watch the news and worry a bit. For some, it's a damn hurricane. It's tearing at the boards. It's pulling off roots. It's washing them out to sea. It's dark and unknown. It's life-changing. It's not wrong to be enjoying a sprinkle or enduring a storm. But please, don't negate the difference. Rest with your family. But don't minimize the hurricane engulfing your neighbor. Laugh at a meme, but get on your knees for your friends. Get in someone else's storm. Take care of the person to the left, to the right, the front of the back of you, and don't forget your family first. Family means everything. Let's go!
Oh my God. Our real tweets, people. Those are
Hashtag let's go.
your entire feed. I'm gonna
Whoa.
read with that voice in mind from now on. That was amazing.
Just
But
start.
Picture me as the Kyle Chandler of Twitter.
We need
exactly
to, instead of typing your words, just put up videos of you saying that, and
Way better.
that's a hit
Yeah.
right there, a hit and a half.
The content
I'll
people
start.
need.
Is there a teleprompter app? I gotta find out if there's a teleprompter
There
app
is.
that where I can.
There is
I'm gonna
absolutely.
get on that.
I'm
I'm
sure
gonna get on that.
we have plenty of friends that would know about those right now. So.
Yeah.
Their eyes full hearts.
Oh my
It is
gosh.
It's a great show though. Like it's a great show. Like
I
I'm
think
very
I've
into
seen
it
like
right now.
a couple episodes. I need to actually go watch the whole thing.
Get into it. 76 episodes. It'll knock like a week
That's a
out of your
lot.
quarantine.
It's a
Yeah.
lot.
It's
Good.
like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I feel I'm regretting now being so up on so many series.
Yeah.
So like I'm gonna get through Friday Night Lights, and then I got Ozark season 3. And then somebody told me I got a couple other suggestions on some. I've not watched
Tiger King.
yet. I don't
Tiger
think I'm going
King.
Whoa.
Oh my
That
gosh.
is crazy. I
Oh,
dove into that action
to.
last
Ab
night.
loves it.
Whoa. Like,
John
I
finally
watched
started it.
I watched it with my parents, which might have been the most questionable thing I've done all quarantine. But it was so weird. And just when you think it can't get any weirder, there's another twist at the end of an episode, and you're like, well, I guess I'll just keep watching another one. So I got through 4 episodes last night, and
I'm afraid.
it won't make you feel good, but it'll entertain you.
For sure.
Ugh. I've also like avoided like Outbreak and Contagion and World War Z and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, like people that are watching that, I'm like, that's just sadistic, man. Like, don't put that in your brain.
And they're like trending too on Netflix. I'm like, what's wrong with you people?
Oh, thanks.
Get off of it.
Yeah, stay away from the negative.
What anything that you've learned about yourself during this nice quarantine time besides Netflix shows?
I'm not built for this. I'm a people person. I like people. I like being around people. I like seeing my friends. I like hugging my family. I like being around the fellas in the room and the game of hockey. And I like working and I like being busy. I feel like I've had enough pause moments in my career that have, make you nervous, that I just don't like sitting idle. So I think I've learned that I can handle it, but I'm not great at it. I definitely would rather be doing stuff, obviously work wise, but more importantly, I'd rather be around people. It's tricky. I'm by myself, so it's like it's me and the walls and Netflix here for the last 15, 17 days or whatever it's been, and I don't know. It's like Vegas at my house. I'm losing money by the minute. I have no concept of date or time, and drinks are pretty much acceptable in an hour. So
Ain't that the truth?
Are you trying to set like
Well-
some sort of like routine though, like each day?
Yeah.
Because I feel like in our mind, we're like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this the next day. And then we're like, yeah, it's the end of the day. That didn't really happen. Like, are you having to like actually set up like a schedule for yourself each day to get things done and stay productive?
Not so much as like a hard schedule, but like I have what I want to accomplish during the day, right? So like it's get up at a reasonable hour, before noon, and do a workout downstairs, just body weight stuff. I don't have a gym here or anything like that, so I've been doing body weight workouts and stuff like that, and then just trying to eat like just 3 meals a day. Like I'm trying not to like dive into the pantry and devour all the snacks and everything like that. I'm trying to be moderately healthy, and when the weather's nice, get out for a jog or something like that. But yeah, definitely trying to set a bit of a schedule for myself. I'm a little OCD in the regard that I kind of have to have like a plan, and so I definitely have that going on right now. And then throughout the day, it's important to me, like I'll FaceTime with friends and FaceTime with family. So talk to mom and dad on FaceTime every other day. Talk to Justin and the kids, Kopi and the kids a couple of times already too. So just trying to stay connected and keep each other sane and just talk it out a little bit. And it's a lot of laughs and a lot of chirping and a lot of virtual cheersing. It's fun. It's good.
I'm glad you're finding ways to avoid the quarantine 15 though. So you look good, Nick.
I'm feeling good. Like I'm doing the body weight stuff. Yeah. And I'm avoiding mostly healthy stuff in the cupboard. So, the goldfish, I hope goldfish are healthy. So.
And you're not in Chicago
healthy
right now, right? You're in Denver.
Yeah.
So you have all sorts of outdoor activities you can do there, right? With all the trees and hiking.
When we paused, I didn't really have the opportunity to fully move to Chicago because things happened so quickly. Like literally it was a couple of days. So I have a nice spot in Chicago, but my home for the moment is in Denver. So when we paused and we took the break, I came back to Denver just a little bit more room and a little bit more, activities. And I had a little bit more of a base of people here. So yeah, I was just come back to Denver for now, but I'm anxious to get back to Chicago.
What's your favorite thing about Chicago? This is the first time you've lived there, right?
Yeah. It's a cool city. I mean, I think the fun thing for me is it's the first time living in the heart of a big city. Like I lived in Los Angeles and that was big, but I was on the beaches. I wasn't really living in the middle of the city. So for me in Chicago, like I'm in the middle of it. So the restaurants are unbelievable. I've definitely found my favorites there. And I think just the culture of that city. It's Midwest, which is what I grew up in. So I like that. I like that Midwest feeling. And there's tons of things to do. My mom and dad were in town before all this happened, and we went to the museum. And it's been fun going to the museums and the aquarium. And obviously, I was looking forward to some baseball this summer too. So getting out to some Cubs and Sox games. But it's just a cool city. It's just got a really cool vibe, and you can't go wrong with the entertainment scene and with the food scene. So I've been sort of indulging in that.
You're Italian too, so I'm sure that's right up your alley.
Yeah, that helps. Well, it's funny when it was like the first 2 weeks I was there. I was standing outside the locker room getting ready to do my pregame hit, and come walking down the hallway comes Tony Esposito.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, oh my God, that's Tony Esposito. I'm like I'm a hockey nut, right? So I'm like, oh my God, that's Tony Esposito. And he comes walking down the hallway, and I'm getting ready to do my hit. And it wasn't live, it was recorded. So I was like, let's wait for Tony to go by. And he stops in front of me and he goes, Gismo. And I'm like, he's like, I'm Tony Esposito. And I'm like, yes, sir. Like very aware. Like, nice to meet you, sir. He goes, you're doing a great job, kid. And I was like, thank you so much, sir. And he's holding my hand still. He's still shaking my hand, and he pulls me in. He goes, it's just nice to have another Paisan in the organization. And he gives me one of these. He gives me and he walks. He gives me a wink, and he walks past. And I was like,
that's awesome.
All right, that was the most Italian Chicago experience I could imagine right now.
I love it.
Hey,
Yeah,
speaking of,
I'm first generation American. Yeah, my dad came over. My dad was an immigrant. He came over from Rome in 1954 on the Andrew Doria, and actually stayed on Ellis Island in New York for 2 weeks in quarantine, and until he came through. And yeah, I went back to Ellis Island. I actually found his signature on the in the book on the parchment. It's pretty cool.
I've always wanted to have like a cool family story like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's neat. It's neat. Technically, I'm a Roman citizen still, so that's kind of fun. I was like, all right, yeah, let's go.
Can I ask for one more impersonation from you?
Absolutely.
Speaking of Chicago, one of my favorite SNL skits was Bill Swirsky's Super Fans, the Bears and the Bulls. So have you ever seen that?
I have, of course I've seen it. Of course, that's Chris Farley, right? Chris Farley did it a lot. Yeah. I'll tell you something right now. The Blackhawks are gonna be good coming up here in the next couple seasons, so you're gonna want to watch out, because we're gonna hit some Portillo's, and we're gonna do some pizza and some steak and some sausage, and the Blackhawks are coming in hot. Not great. It's not great.
No.
Mike Chandler was better.
At a comedy club right now, or something.
Coach Taylor was better.
So now we know what you would be doing, though. If you weren't doing this for the Blackhawks, a ringside reporter, you'd be a comedian. You'd be an impressionist, 100%.
Voiceover artist.
Unfortunately, I don't think I'm that funny. I don't know what I would be doing if I wasn't doing this. I owe the game of hockey more than I'm ever going to be able to pay it back, but I will. I'll die trying. That's for sure.
Well, cool. You guys got anything else for Mr. Gizmo here?
Should we ask him some of those very fun questions that we alluded to earlier?
Well, he almost answered one. Seriously, what do you think you would do if hockey didn't exist? What would you, or sports didn't exist? What would your job be? Like, what do you see yourself doing?
Wow.
Isn't that hard?
As a kid, I wanted to be a paleontologist.
Whoa!
Yeah,
I would have never guessed.
Jurassic Park.
So I mean, I guess I'd be digging up dinosaur bones in like Montana. I kind of always wanted to be a paleontologist until I started playing hockey, and then I just wanted to be a hockey player. So if I'm going back to the last like dream as a kid, like it was probably paleontologist. Yeah, I was a giant dinosaur fan.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can you please turn that into a feature once hockey is back in session? Just like you and a player going to like a site, maybe digging up something. I don't know.
Said he likes museums.
Great idea.
That's good.
I'll grab one of the boys. I'll grab Justin, Kopi, and I, and I'll grab Taser or Kirby Docker to drink it, and we'll all go on like a dino dig this summer.
That's some good content.
There we go.
I want to be on that crew. I just want to be there, a fly on the wall, because I loved dinosaurs growing up.
You're gonna have to find the dinos, but you're also gonna have to avoid all the chirping that's gonna happen in that group. So.
Oh, I love it.
I think I'd be a paleontologist. Yeah, I'd do that. If there was no sports to talk about, I'd be a paleontologist.
Paleontologist, Gismondi, love it. Flows
Doctor.
Well. Doctor, I guess that's the correct terminology. I don't know.
Dr. Gizmo.
Sorry for the paleontologist listening in right now.
Yeah, out there that.
All right, awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Nick Gismondi, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate all the advice and the impressions. It goes a long way.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. Make sure you take care of Kopi and Willie for me, all right?
We will. And if we do a part 2, I want to hear about you coaching Brandon Peary, because we said that so long ago, and I'm like, wait, I want to know more.
I forgot about that.
Part 2, we'll have to talk about it.
Part 2, there's a little teaser for you there.
There we go.
That was a lot of fun. Love chatting with Nick. I got to like officially meet him too. I think that's what's so fun about doing episodes like this. There's some people that we know about, but we never get to meet. And he had a good little backstory about his journey through the NHL and his impressions. I'll listen to those over and over throughout.
So good.
He has a career after this is all said and done, or if this doesn't end up working out. Sports are canceled forever. He's a voiceover artist.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's all we got for you guys. We're going to have much more in the next episodes coming along with awesome guests, just like Nick on here. So keep watching, keep listening. We're excited.
If you guys want to follow us on social media, you can follow us at Sidelined Pod. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, leave a review, and tell us really how great we are. Please. Thanks for listening.